What is up, fellow sickos? I'm Dan Favale coming at you with my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. And as we roll out another 2025-2026 NBA season look ahead, we are joined by Andrew Claudio of Knicks Film School to talk about the Charlotte Hornets. No, excuse me, sorry. We're going to talk about the Knicks, which means we get to talk to G-Mac. I don't know who called you GMAC, but it's G-Mac around these parts. Follow Andrew on the socials machine at Andrew Claudio _, spelled exactly as it sounds, and it's on the screen, and it's in the podcast and YouTube description. Andrew, welcome back for year 5 or 6 of you doing this. Thank you so much for coming back on. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be back. I gotta mean that for Valley. That I texted you when you texted me about it's time for the preview to do this show again. That my reaction to seeing your text on screen was like, I've been waiting for this text. I said to my wife, I've been waiting for Favale to text me about when we're going to talk about the Knicks. And after years of you wanting the Knicks to fire the head coach and you being on here to be like, when are the Knicks going to get rid of Tibbs? We're finally here to talk about the Knicks having fired the coach that you wanted gone. So happy to be here. And obviously, I'm also happy that I finally get to do one with Grant as well.
Well, Grant, I just very quickly, are you taking notes about how you should be reacting when I text you about podcasting from now on?
Every single time you text Dan, I turn to my wife and I say thank God I got to hear from Dan again. It's a blessing.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, this is fantastic. I feel like I can't wait to get into this, especially with the Tibbs of it all, because I know, Dan, over the years, you have advocated for some things with regards to Tibbs that not everybody else has. But also, because I talk to you so often, I know that there have been times where you've walked it back. So I'm just this. I don't know. We don't need to segue anything, right? We should just get into the first question, which is really, Andrew, where do you land on the Tibbs firing? And we'll let Dan say his piece. But do you think he did enough to get another year out of this, or was it just time? And if so, why?
Can the answer to both questions be yes? I thought he did enough to get another year. I left the conference finals being that was a pretty horrific coaching performance by Tibbs. I don't think it's even the reason they lost the conference finals. Divine intervention and blowing a 14-point lead with 2.5 minutes in game 1 is, to me, why they lost the conference finals. And I give him a ton of credit for why they beat Boston. He had Missoula going to hack a Mitch on Mitchell Robinson just to get their backup center out of the game. I actually thought he Jedi mind tricked him because the 3-point variance was going his way in the Celtics series. And I think all of those feelings I'm expressing, the maddening tendencies and principles that he holds true to, and then how they benefit you when you least expect them in situations where the margins are so tight, are the Tibbs conversation. That is the entire Tibbs experience. And I think he's a really good coach. I think the further you get into the playoffs, his weaknesses are on full display. And it's that his inflexibility doesn't allow him to go to option C, option D, option E. And when you're going up against a coach like Carlisle, who's going to Tony Bradley and Thomas Bryant and Ben Shepherd and guy 11, 12, and 13 on his bench, and he knows he can because he used the regular season to see how those guys can contribute, whereas Tibbs was I have my 7, and that's who I'm going to play during the regular season. He doesn't have that option. So I landed at the end of the season being how are you going to fire a guy that made it to the conference finals, while also saying if they went a different direction because next year is the year, I would understand and I'd welcome it. And it's how I ended up reacting to the news. I understand and I welcome it.
I know you guys this was more of a day-to-day thing for you guys, but you're pulling me back to the postseason and all the conversations we had about how everything that's good about Tibbs is also bad, from the rigidity to there's all of the features are bugs in a certain way, because it's yeah, he doesn't go deep enough into the bench, but you guys know who's playing and you know how many minutes it's going to be. And there's something to be said for the hunker down and get after it of it all, but also it wears everybody out. All the positives were negatives. I think this is sort of how I think, as I think about it now, distilled it was how good is good enough for the Knicks because, and that's what you're saying, like he gets to the conference finals. Maybe that's sort of a sub question here is like, was there a coach on planet Earth that would have gotten this roster farther had it been used differently last year?
Well, so that, not to spoil the rest of the show,
Yeah.
but it's literally the test case we're about to see with Mike Brown. I think the Knicks will be better during the regular season this year. I think we'll learn more things. They'll use the regular season for data collection and to see what an actual 5-out lineup looks like, and to see what playing with more pace, and to seeing what guy 11, 12, and 13, like I mentioned, what the Pacers did last year. Like, I think they'll be more flexible. I think there'll be a more creative plan in place other than just hitting the same button over and over again, even if the button is leading to some winning. I think the Knicks will be much more entertaining and will look better on paper this year. They lose in the second round, it's technically not as good as last year. And it's technically a round earlier than they were eliminated the year before. And it's why the unfairness of the job really was how I processed his firing. The fact that you can get a team like the Knicks that hasn't been to the conference finals in 25 seasons to the conference finals, like dethrone the Celtics. I know Tatum got hurt, but they were down 9, got to go down 3-1 in game 4 when that happened. I say they get to the Pacers series and lose. And I said, if they fired Tibbs, I would understand it. Like, it's just the nature of the business that if you wonder if a team has a next level to go to, you want to fire the coach first and see if someone else can get them there. And then if that coach can't get them there, you don't go full Matt Ishbia and just keep hiring coaches until you eventually blow up the roster. I think if Mike Brown can't, and this pivot into leaning more of an offensive mindset, if that doesn't get them there, then we'll see some roster shakeups next year. But I'm at the point of, I need to see if they're deployed differently, if this looks different, if it's more sustainable. And I think that's more the motivation behind going on to a new coach.
When you look at what Mike Brown is trying to implement and the buzzwords, the stuff that he has said ever since coming, where it's play with more pace, with more 3-pointers, 5-out lineups, using Jalen Brunson off the ball, using Karl-Anthony Towns as a playmaker. Of all of the things he wants to incorporate, this would be a twofold question. What do you view as sort of the most difficult thing for him to implement, and what is the one that most intrigues you? If they're the same thing, that's of course fine.
Well, some of these principles, they conflict. Like, if you're going 5-out, that means Cat is at the 5, so your rim protection is going to be garbage.
I'm glad you said it.
I saw it for 82 games last year, and Cat played drop the entirety of last season, and then we got to the playoffs, and they're switching against the Celtics, and then they're starting Mitchell Robinson in the conference finals. You know how many possessions, you might know this already, Dan, you know how many possessions Jalen Brunson, Mitchell Robinson, and Karl-Anthony Towns had played together before suddenly Cat became the starting center in game 3 of the conference finals? How many they had played together in their lives before that?
Wasn't it like 111 or something ridiculously low like that?
Way less.
40?
Not possessions. It's minutes.
Oh, minutes? I'll say 40.
The answer is
14.
The answer is 2.
There you go.
Like a couple out of bounds possessions. Like, it's basically what they did. They played the double bigs with Brunson, like barely at all during the regular season. And I think Mitch is about to be the starter, so you're about to see a lot more of it during the regular season. I think the most difficult thing and it's why I think we could get to the end of this year and come to the same conclusion that you did when you fired Tibbs. It's that I don't know how sustainable a defense you can actually create with both Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns on the floor at all times. I do like some of the offensive principles that he's trying to creatively instill, whether it be, like you said, Brunson off ball, taking more threes, running the offense through Cat like a hub. Cat's not Hartenstein, so it's going to be so much more difficult to do that. And I saw Tibbs run the offense through like Randall at the nail or Hartenstein at the nail extended. And like you saw ways that the Knicks actually got creative with the right center. I think it's some of the complications with running an offense through Cat. So all of this to say, the defense and a sustainable playoff defense in particular is the most difficult thing. I'm excited to see what of the offensive principles that he's going to install, because I think that's why you went and got him. Is a focus now needs to be put back on the offense on this team, and especially with the roster that they've put together.
So I do think we all agree that Robinson's the favorite to be the final starter for the season. Is that who you would start? Like, is that the right answer? Because the word you mentioned before is conflict, and this runs completely counter to the 5-out model. And I know you don't have to play the entire game like that, but if Josh Hart is coming off the bench, you presume he's going to play a bunch of minutes. And it was like 88% of Towns' and Brunson's minutes came with Josh Hart last year. That's not 5-out. I like Josh Hart's a really fun player, but that's not 5-out. And so I just don't, which again, if you're concerned about the defense, then sure, that makes some semblance of sense, but you might have, again, the worst of, not the worst, but this problem where, well, Cat's the 5, but we're also not 5-out. And that's just like, okay, well, what's happening here?
So I've been on record. I would start Deuce McBride.
Yes!
Oh, you guys just became best friends.
Yes. It's not even. I do have the same concerns that Tibbs did, and maybe other people have about the 2 small guards. Like I do have concerns towards that. The numbers are just astronomical when Brunson's next to McBride, and the 83 possessions we saw of Deuce in place of Josh Hart plus the starters, like also astronomical. I just want to see it until it stops working. Like the data at a certain point is allowed to just be right for a while, even if it's like visually is like, oh, well, how am I going to protect against 2 small guards? And this is honestly one of the biggest bugaboos with Tibbs is like he did this to Emmanuel quickly too, where 2 small guards is just such a principle he's never going to instill or I guess more specifically abandon. Like I believe in size more than anything, and it's why like RJ Barrett was playing over Emmanuel quickly, even though one was more effective than the other. I would start Deuce. I don't think they're going to. I also think there's a lot of pros to Mitchell Robinson being the starter. Mitch is, I think if you get creative with staggering, could just be like an impactful 6 minutes at a time player. I thought that's what you saw in the playoffs. He comes in for 6 minutes, messes stuff up, like secures your defense, becomes the rim protector, the offensive rebound, like possession battle machine, and then you go to somebody else. So if you go 6 minutes at the beginning of each half with Mitch, then you go to your 5-out concepts. Then you go to Josh Hart and Mitch, and you're leaning even further into the possession battle. Like you have multiple ways to do it. I'm less tied to the 5-out thing, like with Deuce being the starting lineup than I am. I need to just see it. Like I need more than 83 possessions a season. How about like 15 a game? Like 4 minutes a half. Why can't I see 5-out in the first and second half, which is, to Dan's point, is not what happens when either Mitchell Robinson or Josh Hart are on the floor. So they should be partners in the second unit or taking advantage of second units. And it's why I'm very curious how much we're going to see it this year.
It feels like what we're getting to here is now we definitely, it's going to be interesting to see what Mike Brown does, like tactically, like how does he increase the pace? How does he get the Knicks to not be one of the slowest teams in the league, to just get into the first action, like all that kind of stuff. But it feels like the real test of Mike Brown is going to be based on what you guys are talking about. Like how effectively night to night can you use these different looks that you're going to have based on the situation? Because like there isn't a perfect one, right? Like if Cat's the 5, then like you said, the rim protection's terrible. If he's the 4, you guard him with a small, like it just neutralizes what's great about him. Now you don't have any space, you have less spacing. But like the point is, these are all buttons that Tibbs had available to push and didn't. And so just does Mike Brown push more buttons? It feels like it just like mess around a little bit. And I think, what'd you say? Like it's a data collection season, which I think that's really what this is, right? It's not so much like, can they play faster? It's just like, can you use what you have in more like creative ways, I guess.
I'll go a step further. Like, available buttons to Tibbs last year, right? I'm almost positive Dan knows this, but like, are you guys aware how many possessions the starting five that the Knicks had last year? How many they played together?
It was by far the most.
Yeah, it was by far the most.
By far the most, by 800 possessions.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a gangbusters starting five. It was plus, I'm going to it now. So it played 800. Now, hold on. I had my notes better yesterday.
It ended up being like, when you included the playoffs, they ended up being like dead even in point differential for the year.
Yeah.
So regular season, they played 440 more than anybody else. 1,848 possessions that starting five played together. Finished +4, which is the 51st percentile according to Clean the Glass. And like the playoffs, they were a negative. And if you really sort it, you got to go from January 1st on. At that point, and teams had started to do this, but it was really the Thunder game on January 3rd that we saw it. Teams decided we're going to put a center on Josh Hart and put our biggest wing on Cat, and that's just how we're going to guard the Knicks for the rest of the season. And it neutralized any of the gangbusters offense that we saw from the first 2.5 months of the season. And Tibbs never adjusted. He was just like, I love Josh Hart. Everything he does is great. And to be clear, I love Josh Hart. A lot of the things he does is great. I think on a team that has Hartenstein or doesn't have Karl-Anthony Towns, I think I would start Josh Hart because I want the possession battle. It's just that we saw it for 2 years, whether it be the Cavs series or the Sixers series. You deflate teams by having 3 and 4 and 5 possessions every time on one side of the court. And it's how you create open three-point looks is off of offensive rebounds. And if you want to play that way, you can. You can't play that way if you have Karl-Anthony Towns on the floor. And Tibbs never adjusted at any point to, let's see what we could do if we put a fifth shooter that teams are going to guard differently, have Cat matched up against the center, which no center can really guard him. We saw him one-on-one against Rudy Gobert in Minnesota, and he went for 40 and 20 last year. Like, he didn't utilize Cat the way he could be best utilized on offense. And then if you have him as your center on defense, it's like having him without Rudy Gobert. So all these buttons, you're right, were available to him last year, and he didn't push them, which is why I was going into this season thinking, I just need to see it. Like, can I see it? And then come playoff time, hopefully those same concerns we all have, aren't as fully realized as they were in the Pacers series last year.
Yeah. The Josh Hart stuff is interesting because I think one of the stronger cases to not start Deuce McBride is that you don't necessarily want Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson playing together all that much. The data on that last season was really bad. And when you're talking about the Knicks were outscored, their offensive rating was in the toilet or close to it, and their defensive rating was in the toilet when those two played together. When you're talking about those, like Josh Hart, a relative non-shooter, he will shoot, defenses don't care. And then Mitchell Robinson, an actual non-shooter, like, yeah, I guess there'd be benefits on the glass defensively, but it speaks to, I think, how difficult of a fit Josh Hart can be for maybe the way that the Knicks would want to play or what should be their core lineups. And so I'm just curious as to where you land on that. And then also just, we have the injury news coming out of media day. It does seem like the back is fine coming out of that first preseason game, but where do you see like him working with a finger splint outside of the shooting, which is going to be iffy to begin with? Do you see that impacting or are you worried about it impacting any area of his game, whether it is the rebounding, the rim pressure, whatever?
So let's start here. I actually do believe in the Josh Hart Mitch lineups against second units. I think some of the lineups that you saw that didn't work out the most, like in the playoffs, they were a positive, and it was largely second units that they were taking advantage of. And it's why like the cleaning the glass data for the postseason ends up being not as good as it was before they started playing together most of the Pacers series. All that to say, I think you lean into Tibbs ball when Josh Hart plays at Mitchell Robinson. You go full possession battle. You're putting your two best rebounders on the team. And yes, I'll say like better than Cat as a rebounder because I think Josh Hart he doesn't get to 50-50 balls. He gets to 80-20 balls. He's like the best guard rebounder outside of Russ that I've ever seen. I think all the things you mentioned, the finger splints, the back issue, I'm not even that concerned about. Watching the game yesterday, I think he would have went back in the game if
I think they might have even said that.
So he got ejected because he threw the ball into the crowd. He was upset, and that he did a Josh Hart thing.
He's just trying to give souvenirs, and they're penalizing him.
I think he was very nervous about the Yankee game later that night, and just wanted to go take the rest of the game off. If you see him on Saturday, he might do it again because the Yankees play at 4:00 on Saturday, and he wants to make sure they have his undivided attention. I think the finger splint more than anything, and the surgery he had in the offseason is even more of a reason why he can't be your starter, because if he's already unwilling to shoot, if he has 5 working fingers on each hand, how much is it going to translate on the court? You're still like a very a shooter that hesitates more often than you should. And I also wonder if having an injury or a sensitive digit on one of his hands takes away some of his aggression, the ability to go get those rebounds. Does that go away? Are you avoiding contact because of that injury? So look, I've talked so negatively about him. I think the world of Josh Hart. Like, he was a playoff hero and is still a playoff hero. We did this countdown over at Knicks Film School of the top 25 Knicks of the past 25 seasons, and the man finished in the top 9. And I had him as high as 6th. Like, I think Josh Hart is outstanding. I don't think he underperformed last year. I think he was overexposed. I think he's a 20 to 25 minute player that Tibbs was playing 40 minutes. And the more you play him, the more his weaknesses are on full display. So I think if he goes back to that 20 to 25 minute change of pace guy, I think you're looking at a very productive player. And I think that's what he'll be this season.
I'm sure we'll get back to some of the bigger names. We haven't really talked Brunson much, for example. We'll get there. Just because this is kind of a more immediate, piece of the puzzle. So right now there's a bit of a roster crunch. There's some fairly decent sized names that, are in camp, and it essentially you can put a finer point on this if you want, but like the Knicks may need to dump somebody that's younger in order to onboard a couple of these veteran minimums to fit them on the roster. Talking about guys like Malcolm Brogdon, Landry Shamet. I can't remember who the third potential candidate is, but it's a situation where they can't keep all of these guys or can't keep 2 of them even, unless maybe Tyler Kolek goes, maybe it's Malcolm Dadier. We could talk about like Deuce McBride kind of getting thrown into this, like who's going to go conversation. Like that feels more tied to contract status than anything. Like there's just no way that he's not going to be on this team. If you had to choose how this all shakes out from a end of the roster perspective, how would you go about it? Who do you think makes the most sense to keep from the group that's sort of iffy right now?
So I want to be clear. It's like a top 9 for me, and then everything else, while respecting like what NBA players are, and that this is a business, and that these guys have jobs and livelihoods that I hope are not affected too much by me saying this. Everybody else is indispensable. Like I have a top 7 really that made it to the conference finals last year. I like Malcolm Brogdon. I like Jordan Clarkson in theory. I like Landry Shamet in theory. I like the kids. Porty and Tyler Kolek have had moments, and Malcolm Dadier is an unknown at the moment. I assume Malcolm Dadier is going to be the one that gets moved. So you could keep the veterans onto minimums that can help contribute to your team this year. I've heard that they've been trying to move Tyler Kolek, but just makes too much and is already at the point in his basketball career. He's going to be 24 years old. It might already be 24 years old, which in NBA years, it is just not much of a unknown. Like we kind of know what you are at this point in your basketball life. The Deuce stuff was interesting because I agree with you, Grant. I don't think you're not a serious organization if you're trying to win a championship and you trade Deuce McBride, in my opinion. I think he just contributes to winning and has shown to contribute to winning in the majority of his NBA career. Even when he couldn't shoot in the beginning, he was going into the rotation and being a lockdown defender as a small guard.
Now he's getting fall away jumpers from.
I saw it, 1-footers.
Yeah. So I think it'll end up being Malcolm Dadier. I think it's a game of musical chairs for the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th spot, and it's why again that those 2 words, data collection, being what this season's all about for me. Like, I want to see what Tyler Kolek looks at in spots. I want to see what, like, Ariel Haporti, when Mitch doesn't play because he's not going to play back-to-backs this year, like, what he looks like as, like, a backup center. Like, there are a lot of looks this team could give this season that will allow us to learn come playoff time. Can I go to this in an important spot? Is this a sustainable thing that this seems to be working for a game? Let's see if it works for the next game. I as far as the roster is concerned, I think Pacombe's going to be the one that eventually gets dealt.
Yeah, Clarkson obviously was the veteran name, which inexplicably I couldn't remember because he's the one that seems most interesting. Like, if you're talking about liking Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson on second units, Clarkson probably doesn't have his fastball anymore. I think he's 32 or 33, and we haven't seen him in a winning environment in a long time. But, like, isn't he the guy that maybe you throw out there to run a second unit and he's like, well, I'll get you a couple shots. Like, I don't know how good they'll be, but if you're built around Hart and Mitchell Robinson to go get those misses, like, that kind of makes some sense on paper, right? Is he someone that Knicks fans or you, I don't speak for everybody, but, like, feels like he might be a piece that's maybe should be, like, viewed a little notch above Brogdon or Shamet?
Well, so I actually forgot the guy that I'm actually the most excited about for the eighth man, and that's Yabu.
Sure.
And we'll talk about him in a second, but I looked at the Jordan Clarkson signing the way I looked at the campaign signing last year. Like, this is a minimum. Mm-hmm. If we get anything of value out of him, then it's a positive. And the Knicks they've needed bucket getters on the second unit. Pretty much since they traded Emmanuel Quickly, they haven't had that. And a guy that can create his own shot, a guy that can create for others. Now, very interesting first preseason game. The joke on Twitter, I don't know if you guys play 2K at all, but the
What's that?
The NBA 2K, the video game, the A button, I think, is to pass on the Xbox, and everybody was saying that Jordan Clarkson doesn't have an A button, and the man just would step on the court regardless of shot clock or situation or even where the defense was. I was like, I'm going to get my shots up today. Yeah. And if some of those tendencies show during the regular season, I don't think he's going to play very long. I reacted to the move in the moment that, yes, he could run your second unit offense. I also think there's a world where if we just need a guy to go out and get some buckets on an important game in a second unit, I think he's a perfect spot for that. And unlike the campaign situation, if it doesn't work out, they can pivot. The Knicks were so bereft for depth and talent, and it's Tibbs, so you're already aren't allowed to make a mistake or two. That he was like, all right, you're a veteran, I'm going to put you in the rotation campaign. Here's 5 first half minutes. I think we'll be more flexible with that this year and what the standards are, at least during the regular season.
So what intrigues you most about Guerschon Yabusele's fit?
We talked a lot about 5 out, right? And we talked about how Deuce, being as small as he is, may not allow them, or a coach may hesitate.
Is there something, not even to derail us from there, but I know that you're kind of smaller, but it also allows you to not have, assuming he's on the court, Mikal Bridges defend at the point of attack, which seems like pretty awesome.
Yes, but I don't think Yabu can defend at the point of attack either. I think Bridges is a better point of attack. Where were you going with that?
When you were talking about Deuce, I thought you were saying you were reluctant to play Deuce because the too small. It was bringing us back to the starting lineup to score, or playing Deuce with the starters, with the reluctance of having 2 small guards. And I'm like, well, you also then don't have Mikal Bridges guarding at the point of attack, which is pretty dope.
Preaching to the choir. He becomes your best point of attack defender by default. And then this whole wing stop thing that you built actually puts them on the wing. It's the 100% 50% the other incentive for why I would start Deuce. He becomes a better point of attack defender, and you put your wing back in their proper spot. Anyway,
I'm laughing that you thought I was talking about.
I was kind of confused. I
don't think Yabu's going to survive out there on Ja Morant.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards.
What I do think though is that Yabu next to Cat could be a great pairing, and then if Yabu's your in place of Mitch starter, right? Then that's a 5 out lineup, and that's something I can believe in, that I can trust. It's one of the looks you can go to. I think the biggest thing, I again, trying not to be completely disrespectful to NBA players who have accomplished way more from a basketball.
Was there like an NBA player or front office exec in your DMs recently?
No, I'm just, I am recognizing where I stand on the totem pole. Also, shout out to Game Theory. People now listen to what I say more often, so I need to make sure I'm not as disrespectful. Shout out to the city of Philadelphia, who apparently had some people in their coaching staff knew who I was when I showed up to Game Theory. Regardless, Yabu's not Precious Achiuwa. Like, I could see a 4 that actually can space the floor in 2025 and 2026. Can just do more things offensively. And on a team that has Karl-Anthony Towns, I think you need to lean into guys that could do more things offensively that will make like each other better. Like, spacing is a thing. Gravity is a thing. And the way you create more room for people to operate is by putting more space around them with guys who attract gravity. I think Yabu will command more respect, absolutely more respect, than what I've been seeing over the past couple seasons. So there are a lot of lineups, whether he's like as a 3, as a 5, like you could go a lot of different ways with Yabu that I'm intrigued for them to experiment with.
I really hope we don't see him at the 3. I just want to throw that out there.
Okay, the lineup is Cat, Yabu, and Anunoby.
All right. Well, I would call Yabu the 4 in that scenario. Like, they're gonna,
like, it's interchangeable if you want to, but in that specific lineup, like, isn't Yabu and Anunoby? Isn't Anunoby technically taller?
I think what you're doing is you would just take Yabu and put him on like the weakest defensive assignment at the 3. Like, to me, it just wouldn't be. I wouldn't view it as Yabu at the 3. I guess you could argue he might operate on offense more like a 3 than Anunoby, but given what we saw from OG by the end of last season, I don't even think you could say that anymore.
So I'll go a step further. It's like Yabu instead of Josh Hart in those Mitch Cat lineups. Like, then at least there's a floor spacer out there. And then if you want, you have your 5 and your 4 covered, and then he's still covering a 3, but at least you have some rim protection. I'm not even saying it's my favorite lineup. It's just one of the lineups they could go to because he's not a liability from a shooting standpoint.
We gotta pivot from Yabu. This is a little more Yabu talk.
A lot of Yabu. Sorry, this is what happens. Sorry,
but no, we haven't really touched on the Brunson of it all, and maybe partly that's because like he's just gonna be an MVP candidate, and there's not a whole lot to really get into. But to me, it seems like a huge portion of the optimism, or maybe like the expectation of if not better, different under Mike Brown, hinges on Brunson playing differently or being used differently. And so I think there's kind of 2 core issues there that I'd like to get your take on. The first is, do you think Brunson can, be used effectively off the ball in all these different ways? So that I always joke with Dan, like, my enduring image of Knicks offense after a point last year was Brunson pounding the dribble and looking for space for 15 seconds, finding none, giving the ball up, and sprinting to go get it back so he could do it for another, 9 seconds. Can he be used differently than that? And then does he want to, like, he doesn't seem like this type of player, but does he want to be used differently than that? Like, if it's sort of like once a player's on the ball at just a ridiculous usage rate, sometimes it's hard to like throttle that back. So can he, will he, and then assuming all that is like okay with everybody, do the Knicks have the surrounding personnel to make the Brunson off ball different looks effective, which is to say, are there enough other playmakers to like make use of him as a decoy, as a catch and shoot guy, as a guy coming off screen? So multi-pronged question, but just sort of make sense of the Brunson side of this under Mike Brown.
So I'll say this. The heliocentric Brunson offense was effective 2 years ago when Randall went down, when Julius Randle dislocated his shoulder. It's what turned him into a top 5 MVP candidate. I thought last year, going into the year, we didn't know how healthy Randall was going to be. We didn't know what the team... Like they traded for Mikal Bridges at the beginning of the summer, and you thought, okay, that's their move. Right before training camp, they traded for Cat, and they never really had a chance to develop any chemistry or synergy, and you saw some of it over the first half of the year, but this is what I'm talking about. By around January, when teams started to guard Cat differently, the pivot was like, all right, let's go back to what worked last year. And Cat just became a floor spacer, which is not how you use Cat, but is also how Brunson gets to be clutch player of the year. Can he play that way is a very big yes for me, because Julius Randle made All-NBA 2 seasons ago, and go look at Jalen Brunson's catch and shoot 3-point numbers. Like, that's a lot of the success that Randle and Brunson had together, was that Randle attracts a double team, finds Brunson on the wing or in the corner, and he's just getting more and more catch and shoot threes. And that element had disappeared with last year when they were just learning all how to play together. Does he want to of it all, I think, is a crunch time question for me, because I think I think he can for the first segmented first 43 minutes of a game. Crunch time is Brunson time, and it has been for the past 3 years. It's also been very successful,
right?
You don't become the clutch player of the year for no reason. But I do agree, not to make this an anti-Josh Hart segment again, one of the most frustrating stats that I remember from last season is the crunch time field goal attempts. Number 1 was Brunson by a large margin. Number 2 was Josh Hart. Had more field goal attempts than Karl-Anthony Towns in crunch time. And it's because the other 3 can go... Are we allowed to curse on here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The other 3 can go fuck off and go space the floor. And then we're going to have the Villanova pick and roll and have Josh come bring the center into the action. And then either they double Brunson and then Hart's available in the short roll, which works, or they just switch it and then it's Brunson against the center. And it led to some decent offense, but on nights it didn't work. It's who should probably try to get involved in the action? Karl-Anthony Towns, this all-NBA player who's just standing on the wing watching all of this play out. And the guy you traded 5 picks for in Mikal Bridges. And the guy you gave $212 million to OG Anunoby. So that is one of the biggest challenges for Mike Brown, is to create 20 different looks for Brunson to go through. And as the point guard, then recognizing, okay, this isn't working. It's not just me trying to create my own shot, even though I want to make clear he's been very successful at just making something out of nothing the last 3 years. It just should be the last resort play. I liken it to Aaron Rodgers in his prime was the best, in my opinion, at the play breaks down, and it's the most successful play that we had. That shouldn't be your offense, but it's a nice card to pull if things go wrong.
Got it.
You mentioned Karl-Anthony Towns not being involved in enough of the crunch time action specifically. Mike Brown sounds like he's going to make that a point of emphasis throughout the entire course of the game. We've heard a lot about he will be using the handoff situations. Maybe we'll see some inverted pick and rolls. That would be pretty fun. I'd kill to see more of those. What does that look like, though, kind of unlocking Karl-Anthony Towns as a playmaker? And do you think that he has... Because, look, Karl-Anthony Towns gets downhill. I think we'll see more of that, him turning a corner in Mike Brown's offense, coming out of those handoffs. Maybe more free throw attempts, maybe more attempts at the rim. His passing, when he's kind of live dribble getting downhill, it's non-existent for the most part. Had one of the lowest pass out rates on drives last year. Where do you just land on what does unlocking Karl-Anthony Towns as a playmaker ideally look like this season?
Can I tell you my favorite play from this meaningless preseason game in Abu Dhabi yesterday?
Please.
Absolutely.
Cat at the top of the key, top of the 3-point line, drives to the rim, guy on his hip, so he's not like he has a path. Center rotates over, Bridges kicks out to the 3-point line in the corner. Cat from last year takes that to the rim because he's a monster and could probably get contact, probably get the shot in, and probably get the bucket. He passed out to the corner yesterday and actually hit Bridges in for 3, and it went in. Apparently, Bridges changed his shot again, and these are going to be more smoother. And shout out to Fred Katz who noticed this. It's does Bridges' shot look better this year? It's I'm not doing any more content on does Mikal Bridges' shot look like anything. It went in. That's what it looks like. It went in. More of those, Dan. I don't think you could run the Hartenstein offense. I don't think you'd run the Randle offense through Cat. I just don't think he's that good a passer in the sense of has the same court vision that the other two do. I think all of his abilities as a passer, from the 3-point line, are because he's tall and like can see the floor better than anybody. So like the obvious backdoor cut that you put in front of him, he'll see. But the guy's a scorer. The guy is a rebounder. The guy is an unstoppable force on offense that I recognize might leave some people more frustrated when he isn't, and he's a little more timid. But the things he's really good at, I don't think involve passing as much. So it's little things like you said, driving kicks, recognizing when there's more movement on the court, which I also think Mike Brown will institute just more movement in general and more cuts. So yeah, I'm less like excited or intrigued by a cat hub on offense, and more so just more opportunities in like short examples for him to create for others more.
What do you think about the Bridges extension?
Thought it was a good number. There was a weird stretch last year where I wondered if they were going to have to trade the guy they just traded 5 picks for. And part of it was coming from Bridges' camp that like he's just not happy here. And some of that was Tibbs related for sure. I always thought that when you traded for him, he's eventually going to be extended too. And I don't buy too much into the like took a pay cut because he took $6 million less. But when in this world of first and second aprons, those $6 million in space might actually come in handy if you're looking for a minimum here or a taxpayer mid-level here. Like it actually can help at the end of the day. It's just not. It's not the Brunson sacrifice that some made it out to be.
Well, Dan and I have real groupthink a lot of the time, but we both thought we were like missing something because there was some backlash to the extension. And I just anchored to like, well, if he hits free agency, he's getting way more than that, or you're going to have to pay way more than that to beat the market to keep him. And I kind of stopped the analysis there. I don't know, Dan, what were you going to say?
Well, he was just talking about the thin margins they're working, like how that helps, and it's their roster right now is proof with what they're trying to do to fit in a second veteran minimum. So I'm not like dislocating my shoulder trying to pat him on the back for taking $6 million less, but in a way, he took way more than $6 million less because had he hit the open market, like I know some teams, there's like 10 teams that could have cap space next year. Some of that will winnow down. Say what you will about Mikal Bridges. This salary makes him like the 51st highest paid player in the NBA as of right now when the extension kicks in. He's probably like the 40th to 50th best player in the NBA as of right now. So that's right where I found and really it wasn't just one person, but like John Hollinger of The Athletic, whom I very much like. He just was so against it. I was just like, not that I was shocked he signed it, but when they traded for him, I was like, well, they better hope he signs the extension. Otherwise, you gave up control of 5 first round, surrendered control of all these first round picks, and then now you're going to go pay $200+ million for this guy. So I thought the extension was actually a huge win for the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, this was the outcome you hoped for when you traded for him, right? Like this is a best case. I mean, you would like for him to have not faced questions about his shot and all this other stuff this past season, but like, I don't know. I feel like that one got overthought. Andrew, on the court, though, whether it's Mike Brown related or just Bridges, kind of altering how he plays sort of individually, where do you see the room for him to improve the most? And you can completely not discuss shooting form if you want to.
So I see on the doc, my answer is in parentheses that I'm not allowed to say above
say it.
3. Oh, it's just like, I think on defense, he is what he is at this point. Like top 3 defensive player of the year, Mikal Bridges isn't coming back. I also, as much as he's taken a step back on ball, like at the point of attack, when Brunson sprained his ankle last year and missed a month, we saw Deuce in the starting 5. And when Deuce then got hurt, we saw DeLon Wright in the starting 5. And you actually saw how you can use, it's why I'll do it this time, Dan, to bring back why the Deuce McBride starting 5 is so appealing, is I saw what happens when you put Deuce at the point of attack and you put Bridges on the wing.
What about Yabu at the point of attack?
Well, even better if Yabu's at the point of attack. It still puts Bridges on the wing. I think if Bridges can be like 5% better at point of attack, and it's better as a pick and roll defender because it's not Cat in an endless drop into oblivion, and it's Mitchell Robinson in pick and roll coverage instead, and he actually has a center that he can count on to protect the rim. Maybe he's more aggressive on defense. As far as offense is concerned, the whole point of hiring Mike Brown is that the hope is that more people get to eat, and maybe being more engaged on offense, getting more on-ball reps. The other thing that happened when Brunson was out for a month is we saw Anunoby and Bridges kind of have the offense run through them during stretches. One of my favorite Tibbs, I don't even know if this was like a specific Tibbs thing, but it seemed like they were calling a lot of plays for Bridges in the playoffs in second units. Like, go look at the beginning of the fourth quarter of the Boston game 2, where Bridges scores 14 unanswered points by himself. And it's just like, get us back into this game. I'm just going to run everything through you, and everybody else is just going to be setting screens in the second unit. So, like, there are options for him on ball more on offense, while recognizing he's going to need to shoot 36-37% from 3 for this offense to really reach its full potential. So hopefully he gets back up to that and doesn't give us like 3 months of wondering if he changed his shooting form. And as a result, he's now RJ Barrett. No disrespect to RJ. Please don't send your people at me in Canada.
You mentioned OG Anunoby and specifically the stretch that he had while Brunson was out last year. How much do you read into that? I mean, like, the foul rate went up, the drives went up, and then how do you just view his fit in the larger context of not just what Mike Brown is trying to implement, but you mentioned it before, this team is weird because I don't think they have an elite, like, second creator, but they have a bunch of dudes that are going to want to have plays on the ball for them. And so you say everybody needs to eat. Like, how do you see Anunoby fitting in? Is he like someone who could maybe, when you're trying to juice the touches for Bridges and Towns, is that someone who, in the past, like, this goes back to his time in Toronto, he has been the person that's fallen by the wayside. Is there a way to make sure that doesn't happen to him here, especially, again, given what he showed during that time that Brunson was out?
I think if you ask Anunoby that question, it's different from reality of what he should be given. I think the fact that, look, that stretch without Brunson, as much as I liked what I saw from Bridges, I like what I saw from Anunoby, some of it's opponent dependent. They played some bad teams in there, and both of them cooked during that stretch. And then, if I remember correctly, to the schedule, I'm trying not to be like specific about small sample sizes, but they took care of the Miami Heat, who were at that point in full tank mode. They took care of another bad team, and then they played the Clippers. And it's like, that's Kawhi Leonard now guarding you. That's like Ivica Zubac waiting for you at the rim. That's Chris Dunn. Like, they have all these different ways to stop you. And I think OG going downhill can be effective in certain moments when it's also like mixed in with like a pick and pop for Cat and like a Brunson drive that attracts the defense. And it's why having the offense move more, I think, will create opportunities for these guys to cook and to eat more. I maintain that the best version of OG Anunoby is a guy taking 11 to 12 shots a game, and half of them are threes. So I'm hoping that he's okay with that, because I think it's a very valuable thing to have. And I'm hoping a more creative offense. Like, I think this is maybe more of a subconscious thing, but just touching the ball on a possession can also go a long way, which I know it might not seem like a lot to the casual basketball fan, but just having a chance to be like, all right, I got involved in the play. This wasn't just me standing around and, like I said, fucking off in the corner while these two Villanova teammates play pick and roll with each other,
We've talked a fair amount about Josh Hart, so I feel like we have a good sense there. I want to talk about, partly because he said it and partly because it would be difficult for the reverse to be true. There should be more minutes distributed to bench players this season under Mike Brown. Maybe this is a little devil's advocate kind of question, but like, a lot of the guys that are expected to sop up those minutes have some questions or some uncertainties, like, Malcolm Brogdon, great name. There's probably a reason that he's in camp on maybe a minimum. Clarkson. Yabusele's track record is very short as an NBA player. Do you have any concerns that like maybe this idea of like, well, we're just going to play more guys is not like a cure-all just because some very few of these players are givens as like net positive contributors when they're out there?
I go back and forth. I want to be clear. I want more guys to play in the regular season. Like the core 7 come playoff time being healthy is what matters to me. And I've actually, like, I've gotten into it with some people at Knicks Film School that, like, this is my case for Mitch being a bench player, if you wanted to go that route, that there's one series that I need Mitchell Robinson healthy for, and it's that Cavs series if they make it to a conference finals. And if that means putting him in bubble wrap and, like, sorry, you don't get to be a defensive player of the year candidate or the all defense candidate because you played 55 games, but you're healthy against a team that still has nightmares of you getting offensive rebound after offensive rebound against them 2 years ago, then that's fine. And I think just should have turned this into a drinking game. Anytime I say data collection, it's what the regular season has to be about for me. Now, as far as the day-to-day rotation, as more specifically what you're asking, the Knicks had a bottom 6 net rating in the fourth quarter last year. I'm not going to completely apply that to or attribute that to Tibbs and minutes, and I largely was fine with playing your best players a lot. I like watching the best players play. I didn't think they had guys last year to go 8 and 9 and 10 deep with. This year's different. I think Yabu can play in a lot of lineups. I think, you know, the guys you mentioned, the veterans on this team at the very end, and maybe a Tyler Kolek or an Ariel Hukporti can play in certain lineups. And more specifically, I think you should find out this season what you have in all of those guys. So a long way of saying, like, last year I thought guys did look very exhausted come fourth quarters, and the data kind of backs that up. This year, let's see what, like, Mikal Bridges playing 37 minutes or 36 minutes, or Anunoby playing 32 minutes or 33 minutes on average. Like, if certain games you got to extend your guys, fine. But I think the front office did a really good job given the limited assets that they have to them in actually giving Mike Brown some options. And he seems very willing in the regular season to explore them.
Yeah. I think, and the reason that's kind of a devil's advocate question is because whether those guys need to play fewer minutes or not, we know McBride should be playing more than 24 or 25. And so get him to 30 and you can knock down, you know, 1 or 2 from a couple other guys, and like you kind of have solved, or not solved it, but you know what I mean? Like that's right. That's the working big to small approach to that depth issue.
Right.
Which youngster, whether it's like a Mohamed Diawara, Pacome Dadier, is it still Tyler Kolek? If you want to talk about one of the two-way guys, do you like yourself some Dink Pate? But like who's like the youngster associated with this team that intrigues you the most long-term right now?
I know I'm talking to the president of the Frank Ntilikina Hive fan club support group at this point, but I got to be honest, because of how good the team is, I'm a net neutral on all of them. Like, if you want me to pick one, Ariel Hukporti seemed to be the one that showed the most promise, the most NBA ready out of all of them. I have some very big concerns about Tyler Kolek as a shooter. I have some even bigger concerns about Tyler Kolek as a defender. As a passer, I think he might be the best passer on the team, to be honest, already. I just don't know how you necessarily build an offense around a guy that teams don't respect as a shooter. So he could potentially get better, but as I mentioned, how old he is at this point in his career, it'd be difficult. And the Diawara and Dink Pate and any of these other names that showed up at Summer League and I had to learn who they were, Diawara seems very athletic, and I am intrigued by his athleticism and how it could translate into the NBA. This is a guy that in his non-NBA career shot 27% from the field, I believe. And
is that good?
It's not good. I'm intrigued by the NBA roster, not necessarily the potential NBA roster is my unfortunate answer to that question. But this is the cool part about being a Knicks fan now, is that we're past the point of ifs and hopes. We're actually at the point of some certainty, which is always a good thing.
From someone that didn't scrutinize the Knicks as much as either of you guys, can you give me the thumbnail sketch of Dadier and like what was hoped for and what did not happen that changed?
Haven't you seen his practice analytics, Grant?
Come on. Like, all I remember is this time a year ago, it's like, well, of the rookie class, like, this is probably the one you're going to want to keep an eye on. Not saying you guys said that, but that was the impression I got.
I think you look at his build. He's 6'8", 6'7", and he's a wing, and he's someone who in theory could handle the ball. The hope was that his jumper would have been more bankable than it has been in the NBA. I think even in the first preseason game, you saw that this is someone who's not completely unaware on the defensive end. Like, I think that's probably where he stood out to me, again, that first game for the most part. And I think also why you could make the case that he's the most important, and this comes back to, I know we're talking about the end of roster spots here, but OG Anunoby last year was just basically an anomaly with his availability. And if something happens to him, if something happens to Bridges, this team doesn't have a ton of wings. It's Josh Hart, it's OG, and it's Mikal Bridges. Like, what are you doing if one of those guys needs to miss time? Like, who are you turning to? Is it Landry Shamet at the three?
Deuce McBride.
Look, I totally get that. You can downsize and stuff, but the theory of Dadier to me is so intriguing because it's, okay, like, if you need an emergency wing, you do not have it. And, like, we already know that Josh Hart is dealing with the finger splint injury, and with the amount of time that he spends on the floor making those hustle plays, like, that's someone who could feasibly miss time. So it's very into the weeds. We're getting past the top maybe 8 of the rotation, 8, 9 of the rotation, but for as talented as they are at the top on the wings, they're like, that's it. Yeah. After that,
it just seemed from a distance that it flipped quickly on Dadier from my perspective.
What do we know about him? Because they didn't, and this is, I didn't weigh in on the Tibbs stuff, but like, this is what I went back and forth on, is that he should have, let's use Andrew's data collection. Like, yeah, Dadier should have been, you should have done more. I actually think the starting lineup hurt them here. Wow, nice, Grant. Well done.
That's why they pay me so much.
Because the starting lineup was so rickety, especially post January 1st, you didn't find yourself in a lot of low leverage situations to where you could say, yeah, let's empty the bench. But you also know that Tibbs wasn't going to do it anyway. Everyone points to, and they're right, that game in Charlotte where Mikal Bridges played like 47 minutes or some shit. So, but we don't know. And so there's that intrigue there still, but I don't mean to inflate his importance. And I can tell, I think that GMAC disagrees with me here a little bit, but like the wing rotation, it can get there's a point where it could become very fragile because it seems like the Knicks are placing a lot of stock in, one, we're going to play two bigs at once a lot maybe, which, okay, fine. To me, that's, why do you have Karl-Anthony Towns as much then? Karl-Anthony Towns and Yabu, I get it, 5 out there. But it's also, they don't have reserve wings on this team. I guess Josh Hart as a reserve technically, but beyond those 3, it gets a little fragile. And so that's why someone who stands at Dadier's size, I see him, I'm like, okay, yeah, like that's going to intrigue me.
So, the only intrigue I have, Grant, for Dadier is that enough people have told me that they're tracking his shots in practice. And as a result, it's a lot of flashbacks to Deuce McBride, how they were tracking his shots in practice and they're going in. And when they're going in more consistently, you're going to see it translate to the NBA. I'm intrigued by that happening again, potentially. That Dadier is just suddenly going to show up and be a 40% three-point shooter because the Knicks have a track record of it happening once. That Deuce's shot had a hitch in it, worse than Mikal Bridges, and then suddenly he showed up and was like a knockdown shooter that Dan and I were one day going to opine should play over Yabusele, even though Yabusele might be better at the point of attack.
This is a great bit. We're going to use this all
year. Yeah.
There's going to be people who don't. They're like, they've never watched Yabusele play a minute in his life.
You mentioned Anunoby and the anomaly of last year's health. I do agree with that. You do have a very easy pivot if you want to. Now, it means Josh Hart becomes a starter. Could also mean Deuce McBride being a starter. Josh Hart has played at least 75 games the last 3 seasons. Mikal Bridges hasn't missed a game since high school. So I think built into the calculation with Dadier is that nothing's going to happen to them. And Anunoby...
I know I'm an alarmist by trade, but I see that, and it's, well, like, those guys are due. That's how I'm going to think about it.
I see more of a trend that they have a track record of not missing games. Now, Josh Hart, I think, is due for, like, as intense and fast-paced and reckless he can be at times. Like, I could see something happening there. Mikal Bridges goes out of his way, literally to go out of people's way. Like, he avoids
he goes
contact.
backwards when he shoots.
Like, I've never seen a fadeaway layup until Mikal Bridges came into my life.
Oh, you never watched DeAndre Ayton play? Maybe when I was like a Phoenix.
It's even funnier. But the fact that that does everything for the layup, the drive, the get to the rim, the elevation, and then suddenly a tilt back. I did not know that was a thing that could happen until then. I think Pacome Dadier may be something in the future because of what some people behind the scenes have said.
Okay.
I'm at the point where I need people that can contribute to the 2025-26 Knicks. And while, yes, the first preseason game looked like he knew where he could be on defense, looked a bit of a mess on offense, unfortunately. And
yeah, those were some wide open threes that he missed. Yeah.
Over 5 from 3 and a couple of live ball turnovers. Like, he's 20. Like, he's not supposed to be that ready to play, especially when you play as little as you did last year, to Dan's point. And I'd actually push back on there was no point of low leverage. Brunson missed a month. That whole month should have been about data collection. Put Tyler Kolek in the rotation.
I'm not saying that there shouldn't have been data collection,
but it's
I'm just
tips,
saying
so there's never such thing.
You need him to run out of excuses. Yeah,
right. Up 40 in the conference final in the game 6 against the Celtics when they clinched, and Missoula's pulled all his starters in the mid-third quarter, and Tibbs is like, I need to get the lead. Just make sure it gets up to 50. Like, I agree with you. Like,
maybe
all of
he was betting a live spread. We don't know.
Look, if that's true, then Tibbs should go over to my friends over at. I actually don't know if you have a sports book, so I don't want to compete mention any conflicting sponsors. Regardless, Tibbs, if you have any tips, let's talk. Okay, I might know some people.
Andrew, are you ready to enter the cookie cutter / lightning round portion?
Let's do it.
Grant, you want to start us off here?
Yeah. What's the biggest need on this roster right now?
A championship. No, I'm kidding. Biggest need on the roster right now is a defined backup point guard.
And that's interesting. Like, even so, with them signing all these guards?
Right, a defined backup point guard. I don't know who it is yet.
Oh,
I don't know if
I thought you were saying, like, you want someone who's not on the roster they need to go out and get.
I got to be honest, I'm so out on the transactional, like they've done so much already as far as getting options that I think there's enough here until February for me to say whatever they need is probably already on the roster. They just got to find it. Is Malcolm Brogdon the backup point guard? Is Jordan Clarkson the backup point guard? Do you go to Deuce as a backup point guard and just be a little bigger next to Shamit? Do you see if Tyler Kolek can be your backup point guard at this point in his career? So, like, a guy to run the second unit is really more what I'm saying. And that's, I think, their biggest need because they just haven't had it since they traded Emmanuel quickly.
What's something about the Knicks' strength, weakness, storyline, whatever, player development that's flying under the radar that you think deserves more attention?
A healthy season of Mitchell Robinson, if you want to talk about the biggest if, like knocking on wood, a healthy season of Mitchell Robinson could put him in conversations next offseason that he becomes too expensive for the Knicks. Now, that might just be by default, like a thing that's going to happen anyway because where they are against the second apron. But I think a lot of Knicks fans, because of his descending salary, have looked at Mitch as a positive asset. Like, when he comes back, he'll be fine. And he's so injury prone that, like, we'll always be able to keep Mitch. But like I mentioned, we spent this summer doing the top 25 Knicks of the past 25 seasons. It's crazy to think he's the longest tenured Knick of the past 25 seasons. The moment he starts playing this season, like, he becomes the longest tenured Knick after Carmelo Anthony. So Melo played 7. He will be entering into his 8th season is what I'm trying to say. regardless, that this could be Mitchell Robinson's last year in a Knicks uniform, I think is an under the radar thing. And who knows how it could potentially end, as romantic as that could potentially be if the Knicks get as far as a lot of people think they could get to.
I will say what I think could bode well for them is that there will be other bigs on the market next summer. And so if this is just an issue, they don't want to pay him mid-level money, then like fine, that's a financial conundrum. But I would be pretty surprised if there's like any team that's making Mitchell Robinson even like their plan B or C.
Yeah, maybe. The health is going to matter to me as far as if I'm another team looking at Mitchell Robinson. I see what he is. I see how impactful he is. Am I getting more than 30 games out of him?
Yeah.
More relevant this year than the last 5. Let's discuss the 10-man rotation, because there might actually be one, which is really like there's 7. Yabusele probably makes 8 kind of non-negotiable. So this is really a question about, we've talked about starters. You can reiterate there who you think should start, and then who's 9 and 10 in of the guys left.
So this is mine, or am I operating off of what I think the Knicks will do?
However you want to answer it. What would your 2 be?
What would you?
Dink Pate.
Yes, of course. Garrison Matthews.
Forgot about
yeah.
I love Garrison Matthews.
Matt Ryan, but like the quarterback, not the basketball player.
You need someone to fall down when he runs into screens a lot. Garrison Matthews is a superstar at that.
I'm going to answer it in reality, and I'll go with what the Knicks will do, what I think the Knicks will do. And so that's Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Cat, and Mitch as starting 5, with Deuce, Josh Hart, Yabusele, Jordan Clarkson, and then Malcolm Brogdon as the last starter, with Landry Shamet being the next guy off the bench, with the caveat that I think Ariel Hukporti, if and when Mitch misses time, will be the backup center.
That sounds about right. I like Shamet way more than everybody else, so I'd probably throw him in there, but I understand the Clarkson and Brogdon appeal of it all.
Yeah.
This is to a large extent matchup dependent, and I think especially with the Knicks. But what do you think will wind up being their most used crunch time unit this year?
Last year's starting 5.
How do you feel about that?
So nothing's going to change. Like, we're just gonna...
I think there will be more options in crunch time, but again, Josh Hart, for as frustrated as I can be on the offensive side of the ball, his ability to secure the biggest rebound of your game, let alone your season sometimes, is an important thing. It was less about ability and even performance with Josh. It was deployment. It's the most anti-Tibbs thing I could be here, is that last year I don't think he was a good fit from a principled and a style standpoint for the collection of talent they have. If Mike Brown can show more variety, more creativity, and this just looks different and has a bigger margin for error than hopefully Brunson saves us, then I think those 5 can still be effective. And I think potentially they will be this year. And look, as much as I want Mitch to play, I want him nowhere near the court when teams can go to hack-a-Mitch in crunch time. Like, need up 3 with however, like 3 minutes left, and the hack-a-Mitch can be deployed. Some
argument for starting him too is that teams aren't in you're not the teams. The Knicks
before they're in the bonus. Exactly. Yeah. Now, my hope is that the Deuce McBride lineup is working, and Josh Hart doesn't need to close.
I've decided. It'll be
right.
fine.
I've also decided, because the data has also decided that it's working. I'll say last year's starting 5.
If we accomplish nothing else, is that you guys have firmly convinced me that Deuce needs to start and finish games. So this has been a journey for me.
I just want to see it. That's all. I just want to see it once.
I do too now. That's the point.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
So any weird, quirky, unconventional lineups you think they may try or hope they will try?
We're going to see enough of Yabu defending the point of attack.
That's just going to see at the same time. Besides that, what are you hoping to see?
I got to be honest. I had a joke planned for this, and it's just, we've already discussed it so much that it doesn't even land. It's like, I got this crazy lineup. Ready? So take last year's starting 5, take Josh Hart out, and put Deuce McBride in. Boom. It's a crazy lineup, right, Tibbs? I think they can go to some very good defensive lineups without. I mean, it's literally the lineup we saw last year without Cat, without Brunson, and you go to Mitch, you go to Deuce in their spots. I think there's some really good offensive lineups. Like Yabu at the 5 intrigues me. Like if a game Mitch doesn't play, do you go Yabu, Anunoby, Deuce, Bridges, Brunson, and it's just like a 5-out lineup, but it's like the diet Rico Cola, whatever the old soda that you'd get it at the dollar store used to be, version of the Warriors death lineup, right? Because it doesn't have anything to stop people on offense, on defense. Yeah, there's some really creative offensive lineups they can go to with 2 small guards, 3 small guards. I know Clarkson is like technically 6'7", but he profiles like a smaller guard. So if you wanted to, like Yabu at the 5, Josh Hart at the 4, next to Clarkson and Deuce and Brunson, like that's a really good offensive lineup in my opinion.
Clarkson's 6'7"?
Isn't he?
I thought he was 6'5" at most. My God.
But so even that, he's not 6'1". Like he doesn't. Yeah, he's not a small guard, but he profiles like play a small guard. Yeah, like
He's
Josh Hart.
6'3" on B-ball ref. So
6'3". So who was I looking at? Is 6'7" yesterday?
LaMelo Ball.
What's up? Maybe 6'7". I just realized I did that. Man, I didn't do that on purpose.
I would like to see Yabu at the 5. I would go like Yabu, like in sort of these secondary units. Give me Bridges, Anunoby, Yabu at the 5 with Shamit and Deuce. That's a lineup I would like to see.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm in for all the creative lineups that you could come up with. Believe me, I didn't see them last year.
Before we force you to make some predictions, is there anything we haven't discussed about this team that you think needs to be talked about?
I think there's a playoff conversation to be had about this team that I think we're about to have, that I think will be the only thing missing from the conversation.
Okay, so then we will now force you to make a prediction. This is more regular season, I suppose, but how many games do you have them winning, and then where do you see them finishing in the East?
This should come as to no surprise to anybody. I think the Knicks are going to the NBA Finals this year. I think now paths are different every season. This is a principle I personally believe in, Tibbs. Like you can't just say, hey, they made it to the conference finals last year, so the next step is like the Pacers are gone because of Halliburton, and like the Celtics are gone because of Tatum, so clearly the Knicks should be the one to go there, right? So I have no idea what Orlando could potentially be as a hindrance to that. Atlanta is actually a team that scares me because they can do the thing that the Knicks' biggest weakness is really well, and it's defending pick and rolls, especially if they get any hint of help from Porzingis. But I think they have enough, and there's enough guys there that are battle-tested that you play enough playoff games together, you know how to get through certain situations that a lot of these younger teams just don't. And when it comes to them versus Cleveland, I like our guys better than their guys. I just don't know how else to say it. I like the Knicks' ability to take advantage of the Cavs' weakness on the boards more so than their ability to take advantage of the Knicks' biggest weaknesses in the pick and roll. So I have them going to the finals. I have 55, I believe, is the number of wins that I predicted for this season or picked for this season. So I have them hitting the over. With the caveat, and this, I'll wait for the worry that could potentially come in a second. But that's my prediction for this season. They're going to the finals. They'll probably lose it, and then they'll reassess in the offseason.
What were you saving the worry for? That was, you answered the prediction question before we even, like the additional prediction question before we even got to it. So what are you trying to get off your chest?
The nightmare scenario, the absolute nightmare scenario for me, I mentioned the Hawks. Knicks win 60 games. It's the most fun any Knicks fan has had watching a team since 2 years ago, but like now it's a 60-win team. It's not just like this Tibbs team that we all fell in love with because they tried harder than everybody else, right? Like it's actually, we're excited because they're winning every night. They're going on 10 and 11 game winning streaks. The offense is great. The vibes are immaculate. Brunson's a top 5 MVP candidate. 2 guys are all NBA. They sneak in with a third all-star. I don't know who it'll be. Probably Yabu after he's also an all-defense candidate.
All-defense first team.
Right. Deuce is
They still did positions and be at the guard spot.
Right. Like Deuce is winning the 3-point contest. Like, and after seeing so much 5 out, And then and it's like, see, didn't need Tibbs. You know, we got rid of him. Then they get to the playoffs. They play the second round against the Hawks. And their biggest problem during the playoffs last year, and a team can just pick on Karl-Anthony Towns, pick on Jalen Brunson, and it's Trae Young getting downhill, doing whatever he wants against the Knicks. And like Mitch, because of his injury history, he's worn down come playoff time. Like a bad injury to Mitch happens. And Trae Young, who I wanted to just on the record, is 11-25 in his career against the Knicks, now actually gets to claim that he dominates the Knicks for his career. Like, I want to be clear, like 11-21, 11-25, whatever it is. I know he has 7 regular season wins against the Knicks in his career, but there's this one playoff series where Julius Randle and the house of cards that Knicks team was like collapsed, and now he gets to claim like he owns Madison Square Garden because of one playoff series and a in-season tournament game that like nobody cared about. Now he actually has something to claim over the Knicks, and it's that the year that they won 60 games and this was supposed to be their year, he eliminated them in the second round. And that is my biggest worry, that it's a team like that that can take advantage of the Knicks' biggest weakness on defense, will exploit it for however many games in a playoff series. And then it's a round earlier than they got eliminated last year, which will bring the "so why'd you get rid of Tibbs" conversation all the way back. Yeah, so it's my nightmare, to be completely honest. It's a thing I've thought a lot about this offseason, that if there's a way this season goes catastrophically wrong, it's not even like they win 45 games and it's not that good. It's they're too good in the regular season to create any doubt, and then come playoff times, we don't even get the matchup against the Cavs.
As someone who's predicting them to make the NBA Finals and knowing what the expectations are and what the front office, I mean, they said it in their press release, but what it infers that you fired Tibbs and didn't even have which is fine, the guy picked out. Like Mike Brown was one of many options. They really believe that this is a championship roster. Is there any scenario there where this can be a progress isn't linear situation where it's, oh, they didn't make it as far as last year, but we saw this happen, and so like we are still encouraged by or no, you think that they kind of have to meet that bar of, I would say, at least the Eastern Conference Finals again? And that, again, I'm asking you as someone who has them going to the NBA Finals.
No, there's no version where they lose. There's no version where they lose anything but Game 7 of the conference finals or later. That progress is that you could consider the season. I don't know how you know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say like it's a failure unless they get to Game 7 of the NBA conference finals. Like that's what they've created. That is unfortunately the situation they've now created for their coaching staff, for their players, for their franchise, and their fan base. You told us getting further than you had than in the last 25 years wasn't good enough. And it took, again, divine intervention from a team on a heater in crunch time that took the eventual champs to 7 games and almost beat them in 7 games. Like, that wasn't good enough. So if you don't get to that again, it's not good enough, just by your definition. So there's no, hey, look, we won 60 games, like the scenario I'm painting. We won 60 games and then lost in the second round, but like we're still working at something. It's a first-year head coach. No, you told us getting to Game 6, 2 wins away from the finals, 6 wins away from a championship isn't good enough. So next year, you have to be better than that.
This was great. G-Mac, thank you so much for giving us a bunch of your time. Once again, are you able to just tell our audience where they can find you and all the work that you're doing, not only at KFS, but elsewhere?
You can find me on Twitter at AndrewJClaudio_. My burner is StartDeuce 26, 25, 26.
Not Yabu POA.
Not Yabu Lockdown, LOPOA. LDPOA, excuse me. You can find me at Knicks Film School on all socials. We got a lot of stuff going on every social that you can follow, as well as our YouTube channel, which is fastly growing. Game Theory with Sam Vecini. I'm doing a lot more stuff with them this season. Haven't talked about baseball that much throughout this conversation, but I also have a Mets Therapy TikTok and Twitter and Instagram account where I just give my 3 minutes thoughts about the New York Mets, and boy, do they make me check in for a lot of sessions. with how they treat their fan base. So those are all the places you could find me. Guys, it is always good to make this yearly trip to the Hardwood Knocks and to talk about a basketball team that has kind of taken over my life over the past 5 years. So it was good to be with you today.
Thank you, Andrew. The feeling is mutual, and I don't always close these with other teams, but since you're here, everybody rate, review, subscribe, do all those things. Apologies, Jared Allen. Shout outs, Frank Ntilikina.